Welcome back to today's episode of the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. Batman Caped Crusader is a new series on Amazon Prime. Originally was on HBO Max, but they canned it. I'm just kidding. They actually just allowed them to shop it around, and that's what they did. They went to Apple TV, they went to Amazon Prime. Finally,
so that's the reason.
Prime picked it up. You know,
Because I was wondering, all
Warner
the DC
Bros.
properties we've talked about are on Max.
Yes, Warner Bros. Has done some crazy stuff over the last few years, and so this is the most recent. Amazon Prime said, not only are we giving you the first season, which you've already completed, we're also going to greenlight you for season 2. They weren't able to get the same, I think, head writer to do the second season because the writer strike, but those episodes should already be, if not produced, being produced right now.
So season 2 is close to being done.
No, season 2 is going to be actually dispersed at the end of 2025. So we do have to wait a year. But let's talk about these first 10 episodes. I will start you off with a trivia fact about the name Bruce. Because Bruce Wayne, obviously, Batman. What year in America do you think that was the most popular baby name? Like out of all, or just give me the decade.
I'll go with the 50s.
The 50s is correct. It was 1952, which is kind of interesting when you think that it was the end of the 30s when Batman first showed up in DC. And what have we talked about? Like, the world's greatest detective, obviously, is Batman. And this is the year of the detectives. Well, did you know that DC actually stands for Detective Comics?
Wait, what?
For all the comic book nerds, they're like face palming right now.
Yeah,
because they
but
obviously knew that.
When you think about it, like Superman and all the other DC, Wonder Woman, I don't think of them as detectives. But I know that Batman, when he was originally shown, in fact, that's why so many people love the newest Batman movie, is that he was a detective. The Christopher Nolan things are great movies, but that's actually not like it was in the comics.
You're saying that he worked for the police force and he was a detective?
Yeah, like they were more, I think, in the early
That's not
days
what I've
for
heard.
detectives.
I didn't know that. Okay, if that's true, I'll have to do some more research on that. My research was basically on this series. It was also on the Bruce Timm 1992 to 1994 animated series, which everybody loves, Kevin Conroy's thing. Here's a couple facts about that if you didn't know. Kevin Conroy is the first person in animation to use 2 distinct voices to portray Bruce Wayne, and he was inspired by Michael Keaton's performance in Batman 1989. The animators auditioned over 500 actors before they chose Kevin Conroy. The characters of Gotham City police officer Renee Montoya and also who else were created for the show. This is an easy one.
Who else?
Who did not exist? What comic book character did not exist before the animated series? They've talked so much about this over the last few years.
For the animated series.
I'll give you 10 seconds.
Was it Clayface?
No, it was Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn did not exist before they introduced her, but the way they introduced her is what's interesting, has always interested me, because she is such a tragic figure.
Right.
She's such a victim because she started off as first of all, having to be a therapist for prisoners has to be really, really tough. But that was her main job. And then the Joker came in there and just broke her.
And I love how the Joker, how it's like he will always have a one-up on every single character there. Instead of the therapist being able to treat him, he's such a twisted character, he was able to turn her into Harley Quinn.
Well, it does feel for like 60, 70 years, the Joker has been Batman's foil. He's been everyone's foil. But like up until, I would say, the last 10 years, he's been extremely present. And then Jared Leto got a hold of him.
Yeah.
Jared Leto got a hold of him. And I feel like everybody's like, we're done with the Joker. And so it's all turned into, let's change Harley Quinn from being this tragic female, like a kind of victim, into this embodiment of women empowerment, you know? And so they completely change her backstory here, which I'm not really against that. I'm actually more against some of the other changes they've done to some of the other characters.
I have my same problems with that, but I find it interesting how you say that the Joker has been kind of absent these past 10 years, because I've had the opposite feeling. Not only did we get the Joker teased at the end of the newest Batman, but we also...
Yes, but not the central feature.
But what about Joker 2019? And now they're going to be coming out with a sequel this year.
I choose not to even think about that Joker because he doesn't even feel real to me. I speak for myself. Yes.
I know that Mark Hamill also, he decided that he was going to retire from being the Joker. I'm not surprised considering the fact that, again, we lost Kevin Conroy as Batman, and I know that they were pretty close. They were in like every single Batman movie up until I think his death, right? So
Um,
every single like direct to video or like The Killing Joke or something like that.
Yeah, that would make sense. I do know that also the animated series was not the end of Bruce Timm's like career in that. He has followed along with a bunch of executive produced stuff. And then also they had the new Batman adventures that came out a few years
Right,
later
no,
after
and
that.
there's obvious love for this Batman because the 3 directors who directed all 10 episodes, Christopher Soda directed some Harley Quinn episodes along with has a big backstory in Batman and a ton of Justice League movies. Matt Peters did The Killing Joke, he directed the DC Showcase, Injustice, a ton of Justice League movies as well, and then Christopher Berkeley, he did the Batman he directed some Batman TV series like in 2005 that was also animated. So it's like you definitely have people who have a strong background in Batman for this.
So I guess what my point was is that Batman for a while couldn't be shown without having the Joker next to him, and now we're getting all these Batmans over the last few years where the Joker isn't necessarily going to be there. He wasn't in this entire first season, but I guess the first question people are probably asking is how similar this is to the original series.
Right, because this is not a sequel to Batman the Animated Series or a prequel to Batman Beyond, even though it has Bruce Timm's involvement.
It's a reimagining of Batman mythology. Tim said, the TIMM said, I imagined it's 1990. I get to reinvent these characters. And I'll tell you, like, having read The Batman Who Laughs, which has to be like my favorite comic of Batman for the last 10 years, but I don't read a lot of comics. But I like the multiverse angle from that point of view because you get so many different Batmans from so many different worlds. It makes it endless. He could keep on coming out with first season different versions of noir Batman for the rest of his career, and he could envision all the characters in different ways, and that would be really interesting, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess my main complaint is that we've gotten so many versions of Batman, but we haven't ever gotten a version of Batman Beyond outside of like comics since the original series, right?
Well, yeah, but it wasn't
That's what I want to see.
Batman Beyond was supposed to be a sequel to Batman the Animated Series,
I
right?
guess it could be seen as one. They definitely had connections, but I just remember waking up every Saturday and thinking, like, you talk about people who feel nostalgic because of the animated series here. I feel like they've had hundreds of episodes that they can go back to. Batman Beyond had like a movie and maybe a season. Like, I don't remember it going very long.
I think it had 3 seasons.
Okay, all right, I stand corrected. Anyways, so yeah, this is targeting an older audience. It's bringing back a lot of the stuff that you remember, but also adding new stuff. You've got J.J. Abrams attached to it, Bad Robot. You've got Matt Reeves, the director of The Batman.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? All right. And then on August 1st, they released all the episodes for people to check them out. They're 25 minutes each. And like I was saying, the animated series had 65 episodes in its first season. It had like 20 some episodes in its second, and all of those came out between 1992 to 1994. And so you would think that they would be able to make more than 10 episodes out of this, especially since the animation quality, I wouldn't say is like spectacularly different than that of 1992.
Well, that's what I was a little bit disappointed by because even though I enjoyed seeing the animation for this TV series, even the intro and the credits, the poster made it look like it was going to have that
Even cooler.
film noir feel to it, right?
Uh-huh.
Like the black and whiteness. And now you understand that would probably be a lot more expensive and have a lot more work put into it, but that's what I was expecting
You
when I
get like
first
10
saw
to
it.
15% of that where you really get the grainy stuff and the cool looking shots. Other than that, it sort of looks like Harley Quinn for a
Right.
lot of the time,
Yeah.
or Kite Man. Yeah, so our job here is to run down the episodes of the spiritual successor, our thoughts on each one, our overall reception, and then our rating, right?
Yep.
But as we jump into that, I do want to get our thoughts on some of the changes to the characters. So, starting with Alfred, I do want to give a perk because I do like that he kind of he's the main character that talks about real things. Does that make he makes
What do you mean?
connections to real life. Gloria Swanson, Scarface, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Sherlock Holmes, like he keeps mentioning stuff that actually exists. And for the most part, Gotham is so fictionalized that they don't talk about things in those terms. And so it was kind of cool to learn that stuff about his character in this. That said, I also have a con to Alfred because I guess ever since Michael Caine and the animated series, the original
Right.
animated series, I feel like Jeremy Irons, Andy Serkis, this version, like they all just don't feel like Alfred.
So you're
They all
saying
feel fake. This one looked weird. Like, this one
well,
did
yeah,
not look like Alfred to me at
they
all,
decided to add weight to him. I felt like that change was a little bit
but also
unnecessary.
they don't even refer to him as Alfred. He's Pennyworth for most of the season. It just he seems to act a little bit differently. He's still British, right? He's got the mustache, but
Yeah.
other than that, it seemed weird. Then you also had Barbara's change. I like that one actually from being a librarian to a defense attorney. Makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense,
right.
except that it's very close to what Rachel Dawes is, because I think Rachel is an assistant, but she's I guess later on in the storyline.
I felt like we got very little Batman, at least
True,
in the first couple episodes.
right.
There was some episodes of Harley Quinn that had more Batman in it than this.
This is a story of Gotham more than it is of
Right,
Batman.
so it focuses on world building. I'll give it credit for that because I do like seeing more of Gotham, but I also want to see Batman in the bat suit.
Yeah. We also saw Harvey Dent. Oh, I will say his cowl, the large ears, was more based on the original DC 1937 whatever series
Mhm.
than the animated series was. Uh, but yeah, Harvey was more of a dick. Or a jerk. Bullock was way more evil in this, which I feel like they were like, oh, we can make a cop bad, so we're gonna do it.
Right.
However, it took away a lot of his like dimension as a character. It was kind of cool when he butted heads with Batman in the original one and he wasn't likable, but then you knew his heart was ultimately in the right place. Like he might have been a sleazy cop, but he wasn't sleazy enough to do something so terrible as to murder like a kid or something like
And
that.
that was kind of my problem with it because, yeah, it was Bullock and Flass. Those were the two bad cops in the GCPD. But also, let's talk about, yeah, Harvey Dent being a dick for a second. It's going to be way harder, and it was way harder to feel bad for him when his Two-Face change came. And they decided to do what I haven't seen done usually, which is like he actually had like a Green Goblin complex to him because there was still half
Right.
of him that was like, you know what? I'm still a good guy, and then the other half of him was evil, and then they tried to at the very end of the season make him just a good guy by the end.
This is sort of what I see it as. When I was saying they're distancing themselves from the Joker type personality, the Joker has never really had too much good in him.
Right.
He will sacrifice at very rare moments, but it's not like he has one human side and one. But Harley Quinn and Harvey Dent, they both have that dual dimension, like that demon side of them and that regular side,
Yeah.
almost like Raven, where they're constantly battling between themselves. And I feel like as a culture, as a society, we've leaned into that more over the last 10 years and felt like that's what we want to portray on TV. And so I can kind of understand why they did it. I also find it interesting how they just decided to reverse the whole like we're going to make him kind of a jerk throughout the first 9 episodes, and then his turn to good will also happen as he's turning the most evil. So it's like he moves to the extreme of both sides at the same time.
And he didn't use his coin. I mean, that was kind of that annoyed me a little
He
bit
started
because
to.
that he has a moment in the ninth episode where it seems like he's going to do the toss, but he never actually does. And I was hoping to see that because that's such a big part of his character. Also, Oswalda Cobblepot
Yeah, so let's get
being
right into
one.
episode 1 because
Yeah.
at this point we're just jumping into the show. In treacherous waters, it follows Penguin, and it also has the bad guy of Rupert Thorne, who is yet another billionaire like sweepstakes guy. Because you got Batman, who's a billionaire, you got Lex Luthor, who I know isn't presented in this show, but he is in Harley Quinn, Thorne now, and then also Daryl Brown, Kite Man's dad. It's like so many rich people in Gotham. And we also see that in Harley Quinn's episode because she keeps on taking the rich people and then like breaking them mentally.
I always equivocate Gotham with like New York City. I
Yeah.
feel like that's always what they're kind of trying to
I
do.
always just want a list of who's the most powerful, like as far as money is concerned. But yeah, so Penguin's the bad guy, but it's a bad woman. She's Lady Penguin now, and is kills her kid, and then her other kid betrays her, and then at the end of the episode, Batman takes her down. Right?
Yes, she mistakenly kills Aaron, who is Rupert Thorne's son, and then she attacks the
Wait, I'm
GCPD.
sorry. She mistakenly kills Aaron. It was her son that she kills. She sticks the guy into the box and then throws him overboard because she thinks that
Oh, that made
she
yeah.
betrayed him or her. And then her other son was actually the bad one, and he was, I think, working for Rupert Thorne. And so then
You're
when
right.
he,
That's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. I got confused for a
At the
quick
very
second.
end, it seemed like from her boat, which she was throwing a big party at, she was going to launch this umbrella-ish bomb right into the police headquarters, and Batman has to stop her before she does that.
No,
Right?
I was fine with the gender change, but I found her portrayal to be a lot different than the Penguin that we've gotten in other Batman portrayals over
Huh.
the years.
People have actually made the opposite, where they're like they don't like the gender change, and they also said that it just seems like Penguin dressed up in drag or something like
She
that.
was a lot less intimidating, I felt like.
I don't know if it was that, but I felt like the first episode was really underwhelming compared to what I was expecting for a series brought back and saying, we're going to be evil, or we're going to be for targeting a serious audience, and this is going to be some real heavy stuff.
Right.
And I was like, really, Penguin, the first episode? And so I watched that and I was not happy with the series. Then episode 2 rolls around. You got Anne be a villain. Batman investigates a movie star's disappearance, happens to be the lady that Bruce Wayne is dating. And we find out that the evil villain is actually her co-star, Basil Carlo.
Who
And
who is actually Clayface.
yeah, well, it turns into this is Clayface's story arc. Clayface, I liked how they presented him because he was the most scary looking villain I've seen since the animated series. Like I thought he was what's his face at first? The other guy, not Scarecrow. Scarecrow. Right?
Scarecrow?
Yes. It's also funny. It comes on the heels of the story about Face Off getting a sequel. Nick Cage, John Travolta.
It's a stark difference. This Clayface is a stark difference than the Harley Quinn Clayface, who is just comic
Goofy.
relief. Yes.
It's not as funny as either Harley Quinn or Kite Man, and that was one of my cons. I did like how they gave him a bat phone, though. That was hilarious. The Clayface character also reminds me of Elastigirl, Rita Farr from Doom Patrol, because Rita Farr's whole thing is she can make herself look like anyone or like a beautiful actress, except when she gets anxiety, like it starts to droop on her.
Right.
And we saw the same thing happen with Basil, because he goes and speaks to the girl with like a really cool looking face, and then she rejects him, and then suddenly his face starts to droop. And we also get a Batman sword fight, so we do see Bruce's skills.
I never have seen him do. I mean, I guess in Batman Begins he did the fencing,
right? Batman Begins, he becomes a samurai, so of course he's going to know how to fight.
And there was the Samurai Batman animated movie which came out, I think, in like 2018 or something like that.
That would track. Yeah. So I liked seeing that. Overall, I thought that episode turned me around on the show, and I was right back on board.
By this point, I was just wanting to see what the rest of the series had, because I still hadn't made up my mind about
Kiss
it.
of the Catwoman, Selena Kyle's backstory as Catwoman, becoming Catwoman, and we also got Dr. Quinzel, which I immediately pegged as Harley Quinn.
Yeah, you said it like right away.
Well, it was, I mean, I know her other name, and it's always been sad to me that like that character always gets brushed aside whenever we talk about how Harley Quinn is like this amazing like heroine or like, anti-hero.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what about that other lady? She was still a person, and you're just not treating, like, don't you want her to come back at some point? But instead, yeah, she's the one treating Bruce, because Bruce ends up punching a guy because he made a slight about Bruce's mom going to, or like almost asking to get robbed when she takes her pearls to the alley.
And so they depict his backstory, which it seems like a lot of other movies, even when it comes to Batman v Superman or the Batman, have decided to try and stay away from, because everyone knows the story of what happened to his parents. But here it was like, no, they actually are going to show you that episode. And I like the backflash. I like the fact that it ended with Gordon and him hearing the gunshot. I thought that was a really tragic way to show it. So I was actually kind of a pro for that.
You mean when Alfred heard the gunshot?
Sorry, when Gordon heard the gunshot at the very end as the officer.
At the very end, it was, I think Alfred was near the car, and then he
came
running for it. Yeah, I mean, he was dressed up as the, the other thing about that episode was you got the creepy Bruce showing up at Alfred's door and being like, I'm going to get them all, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
How did Selena Kyle train a panther when she couldn't even pay her maid? That would be my nitpick as far as plot is concerned.
That just felt like it was ripped straight from those 90 cartoons.
But I liked the scene so much of Bruce showing his emotion, punching the reporter, because it made sense. That I did like that episode overall. I would say go watch it. The Night of the Hunters, police targets Batman. Firebug is the villain, voiced by Tom Kenny, I think, the SpongeBob character.
I wanted to place that.
Flash and Bullock show their true colors.
My favorite part of the whole entire series is that montage where Batman is able to clock that all of those fake robberies were happening, and he doesn't get
He even
tricked.
strings up some of the cops.
Yes, he doesn't get tricked into any part of it, that was by far, I was like, yes, that's the Batman that I'm familiar with.
Not only that, but he must have some crazy technology for the 40s to understand that stuff, like to have the earphones and things like that. So I looked up what Wayne Enterprises actually does, and they do everything: aerospace, technology, biotech, shipping, shipbuilding, foods, medicines, electronics, entertainment, alternative energy, steel, chemicals, and philanthropy. Where do you think I got that information? Not from a Wikipedia article. No,
I was gonna say
they
Batman
have their
Wiki.
own LinkedIn. You can
Wait, what?
apply to work at Wayne Enterprises.
It's an actual thing.
uh Actual as in like it lives in Gotham, or it's located in Gotham. I don't know how you're going to find yourself there, but you can apply. And then also, yeah, you get Renee Montoya's introduction as the main detective lady outside of Gordon,
Yep.
his main number two. And then also, I feel like we see the negatives of a billionaire not buying a news outlet. So we get a lot of real life billionaires like not Bill Gates, but what's his face? The Amazon guy.
Jeff Bezos.
Yes, Jeff Bezos buying the Wall Street Post, Wall Street Journal. Which one? It's Washington Post. I think it's the Washington Post.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like controlling the narrative that way. It's like Spider-Man, Superman. They had the right idea. They go work for the papers. That way, they can at least shape a little bit of the story. You know, make Spider-Man look good in the pictures. Superman can talk a little bit about how great he is.
Well, it's
But like
always
with Batman, he was just like, screw it, do whatever, and that bites him in the butt.
that's
Yeah.
always part of the thing about superheroes, right? It's the newspapers, and especially it being taking place in the 1940s. It makes sense that that's how people are getting their news. But it's like the common trope that always a superhero, whether it be the Daily Planet or the Daily Bugle or anything like that, has their hands in the media somehow.
He just needs a better PR person, right? Just to like, hey, Bruce, maybe spend like $1 million, buy the startup paper, make it your own.
Well,
Put out some positive publicity.
also, it does start a little bit of a story arc where Flash and Bullock at the end of that episode are promoted.
Yes, because of, even though they arranged to get the Firebug guy out of jail just so that he would start fires and that they could try to catch Batman, because they then killed him, even though he was at that point out of fire and it was just turning himself in. They got the positive publicity for it and ended up, that's what the dirty cop thing was shown up there. Yeah. So the stress of her regard is the 5th episode. That's where we get Harley Quinn's backstory.
Completely different appearance than how she has shown up in either the Suicide Squad movies or the Harley Quinn TV series. Different costume.
Right. Yeah. Different costume, different backstory. I get that she's very smart as a therapist. Therapy, I feel like in the 40s would have still been pretty stigmatized. I know like Freud already came around and stuff like that, but I feel like the majority of people would not be admitting to it. So it makes sense why the billionaires, when they disappeared, not everybody would know that they had just been to therapy because they were trying to keep it quiet.
Well, Bruce
However,
Wayne was forced to do it. He even said
yeah,
that.
but he had already left by then.
Right.
Who knows what would have happened to Batman had he stayed in therapy when she became Harley Quinn. But all these billionaires are disappearing and no one knows what's going on. And then one of them reappears thinking he's an emperor or whatever. And he gets arrested and people are like, what's going on? They slowly figure out that it's Harley Quinn. I do find it weird that not one of their reception or like people who was their secretaries or anything kept track to know that they were meeting with Harley Quinn before, or with Miss Quinzel before that.
Right.
So it also felt like they rushed the dating between her and Montoya. That love
that
story
was very fast.
Like, again, 65 episodes in the original Batman series. They could have worked things over a course of many episodes. This, it was like within 2 episodes, they're kissing.
That was one of the most fast-paced stories out of this entire series.
She supposedly died, but clearly didn't because she made
falls
the phone
after
call
the detonation to her house, and then she tells Montoya she's leaving Gotham.
And she does have an episode next season, from what I was reading.
That is one thing about the characters, like with Oswald the Cobblepot, and most of the characters, when they had their episode, they were gone. They didn't have another episode again, or we see them very briefly.
That's true. Night Ride.
Okay, so Jim Craddock, this felt like the most, like, I don't know, Halloween-esque type thing. Yes, because he has to get blood on a contract, Batman. It's all having to deal with this ghost that's come back from the dead.
This is a classist ghost. Like, he's against the classes, but not in the way of, like, I'm going to be super liberal about this. He's actually take from the poor, give to the rich, and trickle up economics, you know?
So it's like a
But
reverse Robin Hood.
but Batman's like, I don't believe in ghosts. This is crazy. And Alfred's the one who kind of convinces him that it might be. We see a possessed Alfred by the end of the episode.
That was funny.
It was funny to you?
I did
Yeah.
not think that we were going to see that.
It was so. I don't know how to feel about this episode. I'm the most mad about this episode because it feels like a cheap supernatural one.
It felt
because
very.
they just lit the stuff on fire at the end and then it disappeared.
It
right?
felt very Cartoon Networky, and I only
Yes.
say that because I remember in Cartoon Network they were promoting, and this was back maybe in the late 2000s, a Batman versus Dracula type of story, and just seeing again Batman have to put blood on this blood contract and put him in a vial. It just, I don't know, it reminded me of that for some reason.
That's a good comparison. Moving target. I'm just moving along. 7th episode, assassination on Gordon's life.
Favorite character was probably the Onomatopoeia, the bullseye character.
Onomatopoeia?
Yeah, well, no, that's not his name in the thing, is it? It's Onomatopoeia, or I think so.
I think it's how you say it is onomatopoeia. But anyways, no, you know who voiced it? It was the guy from Veep, the one who's also been in a ton of other stuff. He was in the one Venom. He was also in Venom. That guy, the black hair guy
from The Idea.
But he barely says anything. He's just like bang, boom. Yeah, he's
his
onomatopoeia.
His character change, or his character reminded me a lot of Foresight from Hitmonkey, also Spot from the Across the Spider-Verse.
He is supposed to be a supervillain, so it surprised me that you had a full John Wick set of people. You had onomatopoeia. And you had like Batman and a couple other people, especially including a hidden agent, Corrigan, who was also trying to kill Gordon, but just not the Gordon we were thinking about. It wasn't Commissioner Gordon; it was his daughter, Barbara.
The
right?
hit was out for Barbara Gordon.
So that's the twist. But with all those deadly people around, it's really surprising that that they weren't able to do their job.
Yeah, when it came to the story, I felt like it was weak, but again, onomatopoeia, the character himself, his design, I love the way he looked.
It's funny because like Hitmonkey, they had a similar episode where they all went to a beach house and they tried to kill everybody, and a lot of people ended up dying.
Right.
Some of the heroes ended up dying. That seemed like it reflected the level of violence necessary for what was coming onto them.
But here it seemed
it was the most and
like, that's kind of something I have a problem with. While the show is rated TV 14, it only felt like there was a couple times throughout the series that it should have had that rating. It reminded me a lot of when The Killing Joke was rated R, yet it was the most PG-13 film you'd ever seen.
Well, that's what I feel like might have been the thing that, like, as much as Bruce Timm is like, I'm going to go darker with it, he might have seen how people responded to something like The Killing Joke and said, that's too dark for a lot of people, so we're clearly going to veer away from too much violence.
I just felt like it could have been TV PG and no one would have a real big problem with it.
I also remember when Genndy Tartakovsky talked about how he joined the Batman the Animated Series. It was one of his earliest projects, and how they would just be smoking and trying to like get the stuff done 24/7, but they would have to work within the network's confines of not being able to exactly show murder, but do it in a very interesting way. Like Robin's parents, they showed from a shadow angle, and it's like a very famous scene. Maybe they were trying to stick with the same thing here, because later on we see Batman has the opportunity to shoot Flash.
That's at the end of
the very end of the series, and he chooses not to. And so I guess it's still keeping him, even though he's messed up as a person. Bruce has plenty of issues, more so here than we've ever seen before. He's still enough Batman not to just go killing. He's not the killing Batman.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it kind of ties into, I guess it was weird to see him shoot a gun, because that's the whole entire thing about Batman. He's against guns, but he doesn't actually shoot the person at the end. So that seemed like a fit with it. I do want to give the series credit, because I felt like Jim Craddock, Onomatopoeia, Natalia Knight, who was in episode 8, those are characters that I don't really know about.
Oh, yeah, for the most part.
And I thought that the fact that they portrayed them in the series was pretty
remember that there was, I think it was in Batman Beyond episode, where there was someone who looked like onomatopoeia, but he was able to do hypnosis. And so I'm sure he has a different name. And that was what I was expecting from him. I was like, oh no, it's this dude. This dude can cause some havoc.
Yeah.
Like, he can make you imagine things that aren't there. But no, he just says words.
going just straight to the killer inside me. That was episode 9. That was probably
We're not going to do Nocturne. Nocturne's my favorite episode.
Nocturne was your favorite episode. It was my least favorite.
It was my favorite because you have the carnival that Harvey Dent is throwing in order to promote himself.
Right.
And you get to see all the baby Robins, and they're being taken by this creepy girl Dementor lady played by Jenna Ortega. Not really, but like Wednesday
Well,
Addams.
again, it's Natalia Knight.
Yes, but what's interesting is Christina Ricci plays Harley Quinn, and she was the original Wednesday Addams. She even shows up in Wednesday. And so having that type of character into this, Batman doesn't kill her either, but she ends up being sort of like a Dementor slash vampire because she burns up in the sun.
Did you not find that as just a bit cheesy?
Cheesy?
When it came to Batman,
the thing was that she was successful in taking all these kids, and so I was like, you don't usually have a kid bad guy. It felt the most to me like the original animated series because it felt like a story that I would remember later on.
it was very, I felt ring inspired with the character.
Yeah, but she was ultimately good as well. Like when she found out she'd killed her brother, that
Anton.
really affected her. You also have to take into account you get to see Bruce Wayne beat up by a bunch of carnies who are well-meaning, but they think that he's some sort of pedophile because he's like, "Where's the girl? Where's the girl?" And so that was funny. And then at the end of the episode, you get finally Harvey Dent turning into Two-Face because he gets acid in the face.
Right. And then episode 9 was my favorite because I felt like it was the only episode that actually showed the villain doing really evil things. Harvey Dent just goes on a full-on killing rampage for this two-parter.
He doesn't kill the guy who is in the.
He tries to kill Thorn, but he kills a lot of Thorn's men.
Yes, but those are not exactly innocent people. And the person in the alleyway, he shot him in the knee.
Yeah.
So
right.
It wasn't like he was murdering.
Well, and that's again where the Green Goblin complex comes in, where half of him is good, half of him is bad. But it felt like we actually were getting a villain doing villainous things. That was probably my biggest problem with the series. It didn't seem like that a lot.
Yeah, but like I said earlier, I think it has to do with the fact that TV likes to concentrate on dual aspects of even good people because you have the demon inside people, the hormone monster, Dark Passenger and Dexter. People are like onions in Shrek, right? They have multiple layers.
Right.
So yeah, I liked Harvey's turn, but I felt like episode 10 was probably more of a favorite for me than episode 9 was.
So the finale, you liked the
Savage
second part.
Knights, I felt like where you got to finally see Batman respond to Flass being this evil guy,
right.
and also them trying to push Harvey to do bad things and Harvey trying to fight back against that, and then him getting shot. I think we don't see him die because he's not dead, right?
You don't think he's dead?
Maybe he's not. I don't know.
I mean, like, he tries to save Barbara, but I thought that they were making it like he's gone.
The negative to me is that there's been so many renditions of Harvey Dent lately. Like in Gotham Knights, he was the main villain in that as well.
Yeah.
Yes, he was played by the Supernatural dude. Overall, what would you give the series, or if you have any other notes that you want to throw out there?
Yeah, so again, I actually like that it was more serious and there wasn't as many jokes because it seems like Batman nowadays, when it comes to the animated series, is just jam-packed with them. Hamish Linklater had huge shoes to fill. He was never going to be able to beat Kevin Conroy because he's irreplaceable, but I think he still did a good job.
He tried to do like the same thing. Harley Quinn and the person, Christina Ricci, and also Hamish Linklater. They both came in there trying to do the exact accent of I'm having a little bit of a crisis in my head because I need to look up one thing about the Harley Quinn person, if it was Christina Ricci, because I thought it was, but then now that I think about it, it might not be. Yeah, it wasn't. So Christina Ricci didn't voice Harley Quinn, she voiced Catwoman. So
okay.
I messed that up I should have known that. The person who voiced Harley Quinn, according to this, was Jamie Chung, who we've also talked about in other series before.
But again, I think Hamish Linklater did a good job. I enjoyed the world building, a lot of villains, short overall. However, I felt like the villains were slacking. We didn't get the cool noir looking series that it teases in the credits. Very little Batman. Overall, I'm going to give the series a 7 out of 10. This is nowhere close to Batman the Animated Series, but it's good on its own merits.
I don't think anybody's saying that it's as good as the original. It's not as funny as Kite Man or as creative as Hit Monkey. There's a lot of animated stuff to look at these days. And so I wouldn't really recommend the full thing. There are a few gems in there. And even though your least favorite episode is the Carney one, I would say people who want to kind of have that fun throwback type thing and see characters that they might recognize, should go check that one out. But overall, I would give it a 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10. Okay, so both of it passes for both of our scores.
Yeah, just a little bit better than the average. You can tell that there was effort given into it. About 10% of it has that cool noir thing. They decomplexed Bullock just to make him a dirty cop.
Yes, yeah.
Which kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because I'm a huge supporter of cop. No, because it just didn't feel as authentic. It felt like they didn't even need to, because there was the pair of them, and one of them could have been like bad, and then the other one could have been like right on the edge.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting, rather
And
than
it's
just
not
having
even-
two bad cops.
It's not even Bullock at the end of the series that tries to shoot Barbara. It's Flass.
That's what I'm saying.
So,
Like,
yeah.
you could have kept Flass as this really evil guy pulling Bullock down, but Bullock showed clearly that he was right in bed with Flass. So, yeah. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.